There is a plant that feeds you more completely than beef. It builds muscle, fuels the brain, repairs cells, and nourishes the gut. It grows in poor soil without chemicals, without irrigation. It feeds humans, it feeds animals. It restores land that industrial farming destroys. And we banned it. Not because it was dangerous, not because it failed, but because it threatened the foundations of an entire economic system. This is the story of hemp, industrial hemp, a plant so efficient, so nutritionally complete, so independent, that it became impossible to control. And when something cannot be controlled, it must be erased. Welcome to Traditional Harvest. Before we begin, understand this. The story you were told about hemp is incomplete by design. The word itself was buried under fear, propaganda, and confusion. Hemp was deliberately fused in the public mind with psychoactive cannabis, not by accident, but by strategy. Because once people feared it, they stopped asking questions. And those questions were dangerous, because hemp does something no other crop does. It gives protein without animals, fat without factories, calories without destruction, and sovereignty without permission. For over 10,000 years, humans cultivated hemp across Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Not as a novelty, not as a supplement, but as a foundation crop. Archaeological evidence shows hemp seeds in Neolithic settlements older than wheat. Ancient Chinese medical texts list hemp seed as one of the 5 sacred grains. Roman soldiers carried hemp porridge on long campaigns. Medieval peasants survived winters on hemp seed gruel when bread ran out. This was not survival food for the desperate. It was daily nourishment for civilizations. Why? Because hemp seed is nutritionally abnormal. It is one of the very few plant foods on Earth that contains complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids in ratios nearly identical to human muscle tissue. Most plants are deficient in lysine or methionine. Hemp is not. Its primary proteins, edestin and albumin, are highly digestible and bioavailable. Your body recognizes them instantly. No conversion losses, no metabolic struggle. Meat is considered a complete protein. Hemp seed rivals it without cholesterol, without hormones, without slaughter, but protein is only the beginning. Hemp seed is also rich in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in the exact ratio the human brain evolved to use. Not the distorted ratios of modern seed oils, not the inflammatory overload of industrial diets. Hemp delivers balance, the kind that reduces inflammation, stabilizes mood, and supports cognitive function. This is why hemp was once prescribed for nervous disorders, fatigue, and recovery. Long before supplements existed, hemp was the supplement. And unlike meat, hemp does not rot in the absence of refrigeration. It does not require pastures. It does not require antibiotics. It does not require grain-fed animals consuming more calories than they produce. 1 acre of hemp can produce more protein than an acre of beef pasture, with a fraction of the water, a fraction of the land damage, and none of the methane. But here is the part no one talks about. Hemp seed feeds animals just as effectively as humans. Chickens fed hemp lay more eggs with stronger shells. Cattle fed hemp meal gain weight efficiently without antibiotics. Fish raised on hemp-based feed show improved health and reduced disease. This is catastrophic for industrial agriculture because the modern food system is built on separation. Crops for humans, crops for animals, feedlots, supply chains, processing plants, transportation empires. Every step is monetized. Every dependency is profitable. Hemp collapses those layers. 1 crop, 1 harvest, multiple food streams, local, regenerative, independent. And independence is the enemy. Hemp does not demand fertilizer. Its deep taproots pull nutrients from subsoil layers other crops cannot reach. It shades out weeds naturally. It grows fast, sometimes 4 meters in a single season, choking out competitors without herbicides. Its fallen leaves return nutrients to the soil, rebuilding what monocultures strip away. After hemp, soil tests show increased organic matter, improved structure, and higher microbial life. It heals land that corn and soy destroy. So ask yourself, why would a crop that feeds people, feeds animals, restores soil, and grows without chemicals ever be banned? The answer has nothing to do with health. It has everything to do with control. In the early 20th century, hemp was everywhere. American farmers grew it for rope, cloth, seed, oil, and animal feed. During World War I, governments encouraged hemp cultivation for military supplies. During World War II, the United States released a film called Hemp for Victory, urging farmers to grow it again. Then the war ended, and suddenly hemp was no longer patriotic. It was dangerous, suspicious, criminal. Not because the plant changed, but because the economy did. Synthetic fibers needed markets, petroleum needed dominance, chemical fertilizers needed dependence. Processed food needed raw materials that could be patented, refined, and controlled. Hemp could not be patented. Hemp could not be monopolized. Hemp could be grown by anyone. So it had to disappear. The ban on hemp was not an accident of ignorance. It was a calculated act of economic warfare against a plant that made too many systems obsolete at once. And that was only the beginning. To understand why hemp was banned, you must understand what it threatened. Not one industry, but 4 at the same time. Meat, dairy, pharmaceuticals, and industrial agriculture itself. No other plant in history has done that. Hemp seed protein does something profoundly inconvenient. It nourishes the human body without needing an animal in the middle. That single fact destabilizes an entire economic pyramid. Modern meat production is not about nutrition, it is about conversion. Grain becomes livestock. Livestock becomes calories. Every step introduces loss, waste, disease, and profit extraction. Animals are fed crops humans could eat directly, then treated with antibiotics to survive conditions they were never meant to endure. Hemp short-circuits this entire chain. You plant hemp, you harvest seed, you eat protein. No feedlots, no slaughterhouses, no cold chains, no antibiotics, no hormones. That alone was enough to make it dangerous. But hemp went further. Hemp seed oil provides essential fatty acids in a balance that human bodies evolved on, long before vegetable oils, margarine, or industrial processing existed. When populations consumed hemp oil historically, chronic inflammatory diseases were rare. Joint degeneration, autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular collapse, these exploded only after traditional fats were replaced with refined seed oils and hydrogenated substitutes. Hemp oil does not require chemical deodorizing. It does not require bleaching. It does not require industrial stabilization, which means it does not require factories. And factories need raw materials that depend on them. Now look at dairy. Milk is marketed as indispensable for calcium, protein, and fat. Yet hemp seed contains all 3 without lactose, without casein, without the digestive burden millions of humans silently suffer through. Entire populations are lactose intolerant, yet dairy remains a dietary pillar because it supports massive infrastructure: cows, land, feed, refrigeration, transport, processing, branding. Hemp requires none of that. You can press oil with a hand crank. You can grind seed into flour with a stone. You can feed animals directly from the harvest. And animals thrive on it. This is where the threat multiplied. Hemp seed cake, the protein-rich meal left after oil extraction, is one of the most efficient animal feeds ever studied. It improves growth rates, immune function, and reproductive health without pharmaceuticals. Farmers who historically fed hemp to livestock reported fewer illnesses and stronger animals. which creates a problem because sick animals are profitable. Antibiotics, supplements, veterinary pharmaceuticals, replacement stock. Healthy animals reduce recurring revenue. Hemp does not just replace feed, it reduces dependency. And then there is the pharmaceutical industry. Hemp seed does not just feed muscles, it feeds systems. Its fatty acids regulate inflammation. Its amino acids support neurotransmitter production. Its minerals assist enzymatic reactions throughout the body. When diets are complete, chronic deficiency diseases decline. When inflammation is controlled by food, not pills, entire markets shrink. Hemp does quietly what pharmaceuticals loudly promise. That is not an accident. It is evolutionary compatibility. Human metabolism recognizes hemp nutrients as familiar. There is no metabolic shock, no insulin spike, no inflammatory cascade, just nourishment. This is why traditional societies that relied on hemp did not have pharmacies. They had food. Now add one more layer, control of seeds. Hemp seeds reproduce true to type. Farmers can save them indefinitely. There is no genetic dependency, no licensing, no annual purchase cycle, no corporate ownership. That alone violates the modern agricultural business model. Industrial farming requires crops that must be replanted every year, crops that depend on fertilizers, crops that cannot survive without chemical protection, crops that lock farmers into debt cycles. Hemp breaks all of that. It shades weeds naturally. It resists pests. It rebuilds soil instead of exhausting it. That means fewer chemicals sold. And chemicals are the backbone of industrial agriculture. When hemp fields replaced cotton, pesticide sales dropped. When hemp rotations replaced monocultures, fertilizer demand fell. When hemp-fed animals replaced feedlot systems, pharmaceutical use declined. Hemp was not banned because of fear. It was banned because it was economically incompatible with centralized control. So the strategy was simple. Confuse hemp with drugs, criminalize the plant, erase its agricultural identity, destroy generational knowledge. And it worked. Within 2 generations, most people forgot hemp was food at all. They forgot it was animal feed. They forgot it was medicine. They remembered only fear. By the time industrial hemp quietly returned decades later, it returned fragmented. Fiber here, C, Sa, B, D there. Nutrition buried under marketing noise and regulation. But the truth never changed. Hemp seed remains one of the most complete foods on Earth. It remains capable of feeding humans and animals simultaneously. It remains capable of restoring land while producing abundance. And that is still dangerous, because the moment people realize they can feed themselves without dependency, the moment food becomes decentralized again, the entire system begins to crack. Hemp is legal again, at least that is what we are told. But legality is not the same as freedom. If hemp were truly welcomed back, you would see it everywhere, in school lunches, in animal feed, in staple flours, in emergency food reserves. You do not. Instead, hemp returns in fragments, isolated, sanitized, controlled. CBD for stress, fiber for niche textiles. Seed sold as a superfood, not a staple. This is not revival, it is containment. Because the danger hemp poses has not disappeared. In fact, it has grown. We are entering an age of instability, climate volatility, soil exhaustion, water scarcity, supply chain collapse. The crops feeding billions, corn, wheat, soy, were bred for predictability. They require fertilizer, pesticides, irrigation, fuel, and global logistics. That system is fragile. Hemp is not. Hemp thrives in uncertainty. It grows fast enough to outrun drought. Its roots stabilize soil against floods. It produces food even when yields elsewhere collapse. In a rational system, hemp would be central to food security planning. Instead, it is buried in regulations. Farmers must navigate licensing, testing, compliance, paperwork, seed restrictions, processing bottlenecks, entire layers of bureaucracy that do not exist for corn or soy. Why? Because hemp still threatens consolidation. If hemp becomes a staple, food becomes local again, protein becomes decentralized, feed becomes on-farm. Oil presses return to villages. Knowledge returns to hand instead of institutions. That cannot be monetized at scale. So hemp is allowed, but inconveniently. You may grow it, but not freely. You may sell it, but not easily. You may eat it, but rarely cheaply. And always under surveillance. This is not about safety. Industrial hemp cannot intoxicate. It has been proven for decades. This is about pace. They cannot stop hemp forever, but they can slow it, slow enough that systems adapt, slow enough that corporations position themselves as gatekeepers, slow enough that dependence is preserved. But something has changed. People are remembering. Farmers are rediscovering rotations that heal land instead of destroying it. Homesteaders are learning that hemp seed can replace meat in hard years. Animal keepers are noticing healthier flocks without chemical feed. Communities are experimenting quietly, outside headlines, outside permission. And the results are always the same. Lower inputs, higher resilience, greater independence. Hemp does not just feed bodies, it feeds sovereignty. That is why it was banned. That is why it is regulated. That is why it is still misunderstood. Because once you understand hemp, you begin to question everything else. Why does protein require slaughter? Why does feed require antibiotics? Why does farming require debt? Why does food require permission? Hemp exposes the LIE at the center of modern scarcity, that abundance must be managed by force. It does not. It grows. For most of human history, food was not a commodity. It was a relationship. Hemp sat quietly at the center of that relationship, feeding, healing, repairing, returning nutrients to the soil that gave it life. We did not abandon hemp because it failed us. We abandoned it because it reminded us of something dangerous, that we were never meant to be dependent. Now the world is changing. The systems built on control are cracking under their own weight. And once again, hemp is waiting just as it always has, seeds full, soil restored, asking nothing. Not permission, not compliance, not loyalty. Only that it be remembered, because the future of food will not belong to what is patented. It will belong to what survives. And hemp has already survived everything we threw at it. If this story matters to you, if remembering matters, subscribe to Traditional Harvest, share this knowledge, and keep these truths alive. Because the most dangerous thing in any system is not rebellion. It is remembrance.